everybody, welcome back to From Small Things. My name is Sue and I'm a scrap quilter living in Southeast Pennsylvania. Welcome to all of the new subscribers that I have recently. I see a lot of new people are jumping on, so I hope you'll join me along my adventures in my sewing room. So I have a nice warm cup of tea here because the weather has chilled down. We had one morning where it was about 28 degrees Fahrenheit. When I woke up in the morning, I could see my breath a little bit outside. And we've had, since that cold front moved in, we've had some very windy days. And it is really helping to strip the trees bare of all of the little leaves that are still straggling on. So they make these little wind tornadoes of, the leaves spinning. But other than that, I've just been busy in my sewing room and working away. I had a much more productive week this week than I had before. And we'll just jump into it and I'll show you everything that I've got in progress and a new finish. Quilt on the door behind me is done. So we'll take a look at that one in a little bit too. I feel like I was able to focus on things a lot this week. And the first thing that I was really trying to finish up was the quilt that's behind me on the door. I had a little bit more hand quilting to do on that, and then to trim everything up and put the binding on. And just as I was on the last side to hand stitch the binding on, once again, that's when a cat decided to sleep on it. So I had to wait an extra day then to finish it because when Ollie wants to sleep on it, it just means he wants to be near me, when I'm working on something. And so I let him do that because I do have other things that I can work on also, and I'm not in a hurry to get anything specifically done. So if that's what he wants to do, to spend some time with me, I'm okay with that. So, but I did get it done then the next morning. I jumped on that and I just finished up the very last side of that. And it's had a wash. So that made me feel really good. And then the next quilt that I'm going to work on hand quilting is going to be Pam's hexagon quilt that she hand dyed the fabrics for. I didn't start hand quilting that one at all yet because I thought I'll take like maybe a 2-day break from hand quilting and work on some other things in my sewing room. And so in the morning when I get up, that's usually when I do my hand sewing. So instead of doing the hand quilting, this is what I've been working on. I took one of these with me for my house sitting jobs, and I did finish that one up. And so I pulled this one out to start the next panel for it. So I didn't get very far on it. It does take a little while to do, but it's just a really nice, quiet, calm way to start my mornings. So this is a work in progress too. And this one has no timeline at all. I know that they take a long time to do. So this is what I call a sometimes project. There will be 12 of these blocks together when they're done. And while I was working on this, I thought of an idea how to put them all together and what I want to do for the sashing treatment on there. But I'm not anywhere near that yet, so I don't want to give any spoilers yet because there's a long time from this to the finished quilt and things could change. I could have other ideas pop into my head. But that's usually when I think of some of my ideas during that quiet time that I have. I don't have a TV, I don't have a radio, so it's very quiet in the morning and I just let my mind wander. And that's when a lot of ideas come to me. So this is number 6 out of 12. So I'm making some progress on it. And I do have another house sitting job coming up in a few weeks. And I think I'll take this with me to that one too, because I know that that cat, Lucy, I know she likes to spend time on my lap. And so this is a good project to work on if you have a cat on your lap. So the other thing I did in the last video I shared, I had some pinwheels made, but they were not pressed open. So these are the pinwheels now that I pressed open from that. And sorry to say, but that's as far as I got. I pressed them open. So they will get added to what I already have. And then these, I had a stack of these that they're already sewn together. And I did trim the outside 4 edges of these, and that's as far as I got with the pinwheels. And the pinwheel pattern that I'm referring to, in case you're new here, comes out of this book. It's called Quilt Works Today, and it is from June and July of 2004. And so this is the pattern here. So I'm just making some pinwheels here and there. This is second in line as far as my priorities of my next piecing project goes. So I have pretty many going already, and I have a few more of these squares that are cut out and ready to piece. And after that, another thing that I did was I really needed to clean up some things that were piling up on my table and actually on my floor too. I finished this green quilt, and then the one that I finished before it was the checkerboard quilt that had the little scallops on it. And when I trim those up before I put the binding on, I always just throw the batting and the leftover fabric on the floor. And I'm pretty good about getting to cleaning that up either the same day or the next day. And this time I just had too many things going on. And so for both of these quilts, all of that was still laying on the floor. So I did get that cleaned up. So the batting scraps I save. I just fold that up and put them in a bag. I usually find a use for them. And then the fabric that's left over, I will try to get strips out of them, what I can, at 2.5 inch strips, and I usually will cut them at about 22 inches wide, which is like half the length of a jelly roll. And that way I can use them in the same manner that you would use a jelly roll strip. So everything that gets trimmed off, I try to get strips, and then if it's still too small for that, I try and get like 1.5 inch pieces, or even just 1.5 inch squares. And let's see, I'll show you. I have some 2 inch squares or 2.5 inch squares here. These are actually from the vintage quilt that I'm working on now. I'm making squares as I go along out of some cut-offs. If the piece is too small after I've cut what I need for the block, I'm just going to go ahead right away and cut these down too. So it's just been a lot of general organization like that also. And it feels good now to have a cleaner sewing room, or at least less cluttered, and it's more organized as far as everything for this project is in this box, everything for this project is in that box, and I have some open space now to work on. So the main project I'm working on right now is these blocks that I'm making, and it's using all vintage fabrics that I have. And as I was working on them, I wanted to point out something about fabric choices in here, because in the comment section I often see people saying that they're new quilters or newish quilters, and you know, they still struggle with certain things. And so I kind of thought that I would give, especially for the inexperienced or maybe newer quilters some ideas of what to look for if you are working with smaller pieces. Now these finish at 2 inches. I don't consider these really small. I'm comfortable with it, but maybe a newer quilter might consider these like a little bit more difficult. But let me show you some things that might help you decide on which fabrics to choose if you're working with triangles and if you're worried about your precision with them. Now, this first fabric here is a busier print, and if you see, it has some white spaces in here within the print. And that can help you if you're worried about getting all of your points coming together perfectly here in these spaces here where your precision really matters. If you're newer and you're struggling with that, this might be a good print for you, because if you notice at this one right here, a piece of that white is right here on the very, very tip. And if you look right down here, that white helps disguise this point here where these are supposed to match perfectly. And mine actually do line up pretty well. But if you're newer, it just might be something to consider instead of using solids. I will tell you, solid fabrics are the hardest to work with as far as precision, because if you are off by even a thread or two when you're working with solids, your eye is going to go to that immediately. But in here, the print itself helps to disguise that. And so I think you might feel a little bit more accomplished if you can maybe hide some of your imperfections. And I'm not saying it gives you permission to do sloppy work. I'm just saying if you're new, it can be frustrating to line things up and get things exact. And so you might have a better sense of accomplishment if you are a little bit more forgiving as far as these areas go. This is another good print to use because of this background here. This is a busier print here, and so your eye is not going to these very, very, very fine points here where all of your intersections need to match up. The print is doing a good job of helping you to disguise it a little bit. It just distracts your eye a little bit. And this is another one that is very similar because it's very, very busy. And so you're seeing the overall effect, and you're not exactly zeroing in on these parts here where the precision really matters. Now this one is a little bit more of, it's not a solid, but you can see it's not as busy as, say, this one is. So you do notice these spots on this one right here, right here, right here, where you have all of these coming together. You do notice that more on this one than you do on some of these busier prints. So if you're newer and struggling with getting things exactly perfect, I don't want you to get discouraged. And every block that you make gives you another chance to work on your precision and your piecing. So just kind of keep that in mind if it's something that you're struggling with. And I want you to be happy with what you've created and what you've made. So when I'm working with my vintage fabrics, I have a box full of them, and they didn't all come from one place in particular. It's just that as I come across them, I have a box just especially for vintage fabrics, and things just go in the box. And so this is one that I pulled out of the box, which is a pretty pink print. And then what fascinated me was that there is a newspaper pattern on the back. So somebody was going to, here's another piece for it. These are the only two pieces of this fabric that I have. So somebody started to cut out pieces to make part of a garment, I suppose. But in this piece is folded here. There's a fold along here. But what I found interesting was actually the newspaper print on the back. I started looking, and on both sides of the newspaper, it's for a store that used to be in Philadelphia called Gimbel's. And on the back, if you notice here, there's an advertisement on here for a sewing machine that they sold. And the price on it is a whopping $76.45 for the sewing machine. Now, I couldn't find a year on this at all. I was looking at the bottom, and you know, most of the bottom and the top of this is gone. So I don't know, you know, what year this might have been for, but I just thought, oh, that was interesting to see the old sewing machine. And it says it hems, it ruffles, it shirrs, pleats, and even makes buttonholes. It says Gimbel full rotary portable sewing machine. So it just says Gimbel. So I don't know if they had a special brand of their own or not. I mean, I don't really know anything about vintage machines, but I know there are people who really do get into those vintage machines. And then the back, I didn't see anything very interesting on the back. But you could also, I guess there was a contest and you could win a freezer filled with frozen food. Yay! And a blender, an Oesterizer blender. So there was some sort of contest going on with that. So I think that was neat. So you never know what you're going to find when you start dealing with some vintage fabrics. So speaking of the vintage, that was another one of my focuses this week. I did get more blocks made. Still not sure exactly how many I have, but I think I'm getting close. And I wanted to just do a preliminary layout and see how they all look together and see about what size I'm going to get. So come and join me in the basting room and we'll lay out some blocks. Okay, so we laid some of these blocks out, and this is just preliminary. I just kind of wanted to get a feel for things and a feel for the size of, you know, what it might be. In these spots around here, I will be putting setting triangles in. I was originally going to use some vintage fabrics for that also, that just had a lot of negative space in them. But now that I've looked at those fabrics that I have, I think it's going to be way too busy for that. I wasn't liking how it was going to look. And some of those fabrics, they would have gone against, you know, like two different sides here. And at the top, it would have gone against, like they would have, I don't know, blended in, I think, too much with the triangles. Yeah, I think I'm going to scrap that idea of using the vintage fabrics for that. So I think I'll stick with the background fabric for this. I do have some blocks left over here that didn't make it to this cut here on the floor. Just looking at what I have. So we laid a tape measure across here just to get again, just a general idea of where I'm at. So this is going through one of the centers here, and we're sitting at about 72 inches right now. And again, I have to take into consideration that nothing is sewn together. So once I sew things and some gets taken up in seam allowances, that measurement is going to change. But at least I have an idea of what I'm working with now. And also, which I'm sure you can see, these yellow blocks pop. They really pop. So I'm going to have to make sure that they are dispersed a little bit more evenly throughout here. A lot of the blocks that I made, there are 4 of each of them, because you know, when you make a half square triangle, starting with one big block, you actually get 2 of these units. And so I was cutting 2 big squares to start with, so I ended up with 4 of these blocks altogether. So not every one of these has 4 blocks, but a lot of them do. And so I will try to be a little more intentional as to how things are kind of separated from each other, so they don't touch each other or aren't too close to each other. But again, this is the first time I'm laying this out, and it was just to get an idea of how things are looking and to kind of get a general idea of the size. So the next thing I think that I would do is get a general layout of the, you know, separating the colors a little bit more and making sure that they're all, you know, far enough away from each other, and then start sewing them into rows. And I start, now one row for me, I can, you know, this is the first row here, and it will get a triangle on either side to fit in here. So this is a straight edge here, and this will be a straight edge here, and then this gets a straight, another triangle. So my first row will be 1 with 2 triangles. The next row will be 3 with 2 triangles, and so on. And so that's how I approach it anyway. And then I'll get a pretty good idea of the size that I want, and we'll go from there. But I like how it looks. I think it's very bright and very cheerful. And even though these fabrics are very old, I don't think they look old, and it certainly doesn't look vintage to me. It looks very bright and fresh, and I really like it a lot. And now I wonder, why did I wait so long to use some of these fabrics? They're gorgeous. I really like it. And while we're in the basting room here, I wanted to show you, I got this one basted. So that took me, I usually take 2 days to baste a quilt, but this one, I had a night when I woke up in the middle of the night and my cat thought, yay, it's playtime. And then I couldn't go back to sleep. So I thought, well, I have something I can do. So it was in the dead of the night, pitch black outside. So I laid this out and I started to baste it. And then around 8 in the morning, I took a nap. And then I got up again and I finished it. So this one is all basted now. And so I have Pam's quilt, the hexagon quilt, that is next in line to be quilted. And then this one will be after that. So I have a finish this week. So let's talk about this a little bit. This is my green quilt. I was originally going to just give this to charity, and then a lot of people in the comments suggested that I keep it. They really liked it, and so I did have second thoughts about it, because I don't need another quilt. I really don't. I make them because I like making quilts. I don't think, even from the very first quilt I made, I don't think I've ever made a quilt because I wanted a quilt. I think every quilt I make is because I like making quilts. I like the making process of it. I don't like the having part of it as much. That's never my goal, is having a quilt. I make them because I like to make quilts, and that's what this one was too. So I might keep this one for a little bit. Now, I did put polyester batting in this, and I did that because you know, prices of everything keep going up, and so including batting. And so my preferred batting is in the corner here. I use Warm and Natural, an 80-20 blend. I really like that a lot. I've been using it for years. I like the weight of it a lot in a quilt, and I like the drape of it. It washes really well. I don't have any problems, so usually when I find something that works for me, I stay with it. Now getting back to the polyester. I hadn't used polyester for years and years. Still not a huge fan of it, but it does quilt very easily. It shows your quilting stitches really nicely. And so I think I might start using that for quilts that, in my mind, they just might find another home quickly. They might get donated somewhere. They're ones that, let's see, how do I say this? It's not that I don't care about it, but let's face it, not all of our quilts that we make have the same level of importance to them, or the same emotion attached to them, or the same meaning to us. And so I think maybe the ones that are maybe a little less important to me, I think I might start using some polyester in them, just because it's a money saver for me. Honestly, prices of everything keep going up, and I have to just try to find ways to manage my costs. And that really is what it comes down to, is just a matter of economics, really. So I've made a number of quilts way back in the day, in the very beginning, when that's what I used, was polyester. My quilts are holding up fine. I don't use them hard, and because I have so many quilts now, even when I do use them, and I still do use them, they don't stay on my bed for a long period of time. I tend to change the quilts on my bed about every 2 weeks. I just put a different one on because I have so many quilts. That way I can use them, I get them out, I air them out, they get opened up, and I enjoy them. So, but I have heard that over time, polyester just does not hold up as well. Again, some of my quilts are 35 years old and they're fine. So that's just my explanation on why I have a few quilts that are current that have polyester in them. Okay, so let's talk about this one a little bit. I like the layout on this a lot. And I was really happy to be able to use up some of my string piecing neutrals in this. That's what I do with all of my little off-whites. I just put them in a box and I just sew them to newspaper. And I do mine with 4-inch finished squares. I cut the newspaper at 4.5. I sew all the strips on, and then I trim it down. And then once it's in the quilt, I remove the paper and put it in a quilt, and they finish at 4 inches. So for me, this worked out really well because each of the green squares in here finishes at 2 inches, and these neutral squares finish at 4 inches. So the math is very easy for this, and I really like the final effect of it. And this one too, once I decided to keep it, I decided that the first border, the inner border, it blended maybe a little bit too much. I mean, you could see it, you could tell there was something there, but I thought it needed more definition to show that off. So I put some embroidery around that, and I love how this turned out. I really like that feather stitch that I put around there a lot. I think this really takes it to the next level, and it just turns it into something a little bit more elevated than what it was before. Now for the outside border, I wanted to try a different stitch. So the outside border, I just put the buttonhole or the blanket stitch on the outside border. And I have a big box of embroidery threads. So I got the box out and I looked at the threads that looked like they were very similar. And I started by using the threads that I had the smallest amount of. And I don't think you can tell the difference in any color that's going around any of these, although they are not the same color. Really, they are not the same color. And because I started with the center going around there first, even though they're not the same color, they are very, very, very close to being the same color. Now, when I got to the outside, you know, it takes a lot more thread to go around the outside. One of the sides, and I can't even tell standing here, the color is a little bit lighter than the other three sides. But I used it because it was close enough, and I don't think you can really tell unless you're really, really, really studying it. So that gave me an opportunity also to use up some of those threads. I did not now put that blanket stitch right up against the binding here, because this binding is a very dark green, and I thought if I put those, you know, this really pops against this white. And so I thought if I put those stitches up against here, they would almost be invisible. They would almost blend right into that, and it just would not have the effect that it does in here. And that's a lot of effort and a lot of thread to put in for something where you just don't get much in return. You know, you just wouldn't see it against that, at least not see it very well. So I opted not to do it because the binding here did the trick. It really frames it very nicely. And then the back of it, I'll show you the back. This was a small duvet cover that I bought, I think maybe at a church sale. So this plaid and then the inner plaid, that was the duvet cover. And so I did have to add a little bit of my own fabric then around a few of the sides to make it big enough. So that's the back. I think it gives a really nice feel to the quilt too. Oh, and then the binding too. I had this dark green binding, and it looks like there's polka dots. It's actually little Christmas trees. And it's technically a stripe. It's hard to tell. It really doesn't read as a stripe, but technically it is. So that's my green quilt. Another one that's finished for the year. Okay, so in my head as of today, my goals for next week are to start hand quilting Pam's hexagon quilt. I did draw some lines on. I think I'm just going to do straight lines on that one because of the design of the quilt. I'll share that with you a little bit. It's downstairs in a big pile. So I'll start quilting that one. And then my vintage blocks, I think I'll start making some setting triangles, and I'll finalize a layout on that and see how that goes. And maybe I can start sewing at least some of those rows together. So that's on my to-do list this week. Right now in my head, I don't have any plans to get further along with my pinwheel quilt, because usually when I get to this point with my vintage blocks, when I get this far along, I usually try and then just focus on that to at least get a quilt top finished. So that's what I have planned for this week, and I hope that everybody out there, I hope all you guys have your plans set in place too for the coming week. And I hope that your Thanksgiving plans are coming together if you celebrate Thanksgiving here in the United States like we do. And other than that, everybody keep warm and have a good time in your sewing room this week. I'll see you next time. Bye.